Hi, everybody. My name is Tim, and basically, because I wasn't really able to go out and find anything like this that I wanted to share with some of my technologically challenged friends and family members, that kind of step by step walk them through being able to connect to and participate in a Zoom meeting, I thought I would go ahead and create something of my own. I'm not sponsored by Zoom. I'm not being paid by Zoom in any way, but through my work, I've used Zoom over the years quite a bit, and so I'm somewhat familiar with it. And uh, I've just been a little bit concerned with some people that, may just be lacking in technical knowledge and just a little bit uncomfortable with getting online in general, let alone participating in something that's a little bit more advanced, like a video conferencing connection. And I know this has been really important to a lot of us, being able to stay connected to friends and family, acquaintances, coworkers through various forms of getting connected online, whether it be Skype or WebEx. But I'm pretty familiar with Zoom meetings, and so I thought I would go ahead and prepare a little, quick, just low tech, but very thorough guide to, like I say, getting connected to Zoom, participating, and then I've got a demo Zoom meeting up and going, and so I'm going to walk through some of the controls that are available with Zoom. And I just kind of hope that if somebody who's really shying away from participating in video conferencing in general, if they can kind of see what it looks like and how easy it is to participate, maybe they'll jump in and give it a try. So the first couple things I want to say, especially about Zoom and what makes it so attractive, is that number one, you're not going to have to give out any kind of credit card information in order to connect to a Zoom meeting. You're not going to have to create a new account with another password, like we don't already have enough of those. And you're not even going to have to submit your email address to Zoom, so you're not going to be inundated by a bunch of junk mail over the years. So it really, really is a clean program, and they respect your privacy very well. So I've really liked that over the years as I've used Zoom. The second thing that's really good about Zoom meetings in particular is its versatility and adaptability across a wide range of technologies. So you can download, there's a Zoom app for Android phones. Uh, Here on my phone, on the Play Store, it's called Zoom Cloud Meetings. I think it's named the same thing in Apple Store. So if you want to run Zoom off your phone or off your iPad, you're welcome to do that. You'll just need to go out and download that app first. I think most people are fairly comfortable with being able to do that. Now, here for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm running it off of my laptop, so it's already got a camera and microphone connected to it, and those are two kind of the critical pieces that you'll need in order to get up and participate fully in any kind of video conferencing meeting. Is you need to have a camera so that other people will be able to see you when you enter the room, and then a microphone so that when you speak, other people can hear you. So I'm assuming that you've got those already connected or part of whatever it is that you're using. If you have an older style desktop with a separate monitor, maybe you don't have those two pieces available to you. You can go to really any office supply store or online if you're comfortable with shopping online. And what you need is a webcam. And most webcams have both of those integrated into them, where they're just both a camera and a microphone. And here in just a minute, when I hop online, I'll show an example of what I'm talking about. But these basically very simple to connect to your computer. They just connect via a USB cable. Any of the technical store people there, if you go to a store, excuse me, to buy one, should be able to show you how to set it up, but usually they don't require any sophisticated software to go. A lot of them are just plug and play. So if you don't have that available to you, go out and think about buying a webcam. They're fairly inexpensive. They're only about $25 to $50, so not too costly if you don't have one. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to be assuming that whatever device you're using, it's already got a camera and a microphone to it. Okay, so Uh, Two more things about Zoom meetings in particular, or really any video conferencing meetings to say, is that essentially you have two types of meetings that will generally take place. So, for example, the first one would be an example of this would be you've got an invitation to attend your church service because your church has had to close down. They can't do physical services anymore. So maybe your pastor or your church, a staff member of church, has sent you an invitation that you're invited to come and be a part of the church service. So in that instance, you're basically a participant, sitting in the audience watching somebody else give a presentation. Another example of a lot of that's going on in my personal life is that I'm pretty actively involved here in the yoga community in Kansas City. I own a health and fitness photography company called Yoga Folio, and so I do photography and multimedia setups for a lot of yoga studios, and I'm a yoga student, and so a lot of the schools that I typically go to have had to close down because of what's going on, and so they're starting to do their classes virtually. And so you can sign up online, register for one of the classes, and then connect into the classes virtually. And this is kind of another example where when a teacher is like giving a class and you're basically a participant in that class. So though that is one style of meeting where you're basically a spectator or participant watching someone else do something. Okay. The second type of meeting is more like what you would think would be a business meeting where everybody is, maybe talking back and forth to one another. There's more of a free flow dialogue by all the different people that have joined the meeting. That's the second style of meeting. Okay, where everybody is kind of participating with one another. We'll go over kind of those two styles, like what takes place in both kind of meeting, but for the demo I've set up, we're going to pretend as if I own my photography studio and I've uh, booked a guest lecturer to come in and do a lecture, but because we can't do it physically, I've just sent out invitations to my student base or my client base, inviting them to come and view this guest lecturer that's come to my studio and will be speaking. So the main thing that we need in order to connect to any Zoom video conferencing room is the meeting ID. So I'm going to show you how or where you go to look for that meeting ID. And here in just a second, we're going to go to my email inbox because my studio has sent out we're just kind of playing, doing a test demo, but I've sent out to my client base a Zoom meeting invitation. And so maybe you've gotten some of these in your email inbox and you're just not sure what to do with them. Like I say, this could have come from your church, or if you're like in my case, I'm a yoga student in a number of places, and so maybe you've gotten some Zoom invitations and you're just not quite sure what to do with them. So we'll go ahead now and we'll break away to my email inbox, and I'll show you what to do once you've got that meeting ID. So here we go. All right. So here we are in my Yahoo inbox, and like I say, the name of my company is Yoga Folio, and so what we're doing is we're pretending like I've sent this invitation out to all of my clients, and I've said, hey, I've got this meeting that's going on. Would you like to, hop in and participate in that? And so within the very generic Zoom email invitation, they all pretty much look the same, and you'll see right here is the meeting ID that I'm talking about. Okay, so that's basically the essential piece of information you need to be able to connect to any Zoom meeting. Now, sometimes these will come or you'll be alerted to a Zoom meeting by an email invitation like this, but I also know that there are a lot of other just support groups and meetings that are being published, especially on Facebook, where all they're doing is they're publishing this meeting ID and you're welcome to attend. I know of some that are going on 24/7, so you could always pop into that meeting ID, but most of them are going to be scheduled in some type. So there's, this particular meeting is taking place tomorrow at noon or later this afternoon, whatever it is. So you want to keep that in mind before you connect to the meeting. When is that meeting taking place? Because if, suppose, for example, this meeting that I've set up, if it wasn't scheduled until tomorrow at noon, and I was to go ahead and connect to it and enter the meeting, basically I'm going to be brought to a blank page, a dead space, because that meeting hasn't actually already started. Okay, so also, if you're going to be connecting to a meeting that is outside of your time zone, so for example, this meeting is scheduled for the Central Time. You want to take that into account too. So if you're going to be joining a meeting that's on the Pacific Coast or on East Coast, you want to do the calibration of how that reflects on your time zone. So, for example, if you were, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this, but suppose you were going to be you were on the East Coast, and we're going to be connecting to this meeting here at 11 o'clock. Well, then you'd want to be, at your desk at noon, I guess it would be, ready to go to join this meeting. Okay. Uh, Other meetings sometimes are also password protected, and so if they are password protected, right underneath here on the meeting ID, it also has the password that you would be using to connect to the meeting. I think for my demo, I've gone ahead and I've password protected it, so I'll demonstrate what that's like before we get connected to the meeting. So that's the main piece of information you need is the meeting ID, and so. The other thing that is within an email Zoom invitation is this hyperlink. And so if you were going to be connecting to this meeting, and suppose, like I say, this meeting is at 11 o'clock, kind of the standard protocol is to try to be at your computer connected to the meeting maybe 15 or 10 minutes ahead of time. And so another way that you'd be able to connect to the meeting, not only with the meeting ID, but if you have the invitation email, you could just click on this hyperlink here and it would take you directly to the meeting that we're going to be going to here in just a second. But I'm going to go and work off of the fact that we've got this meeting ID because so many of the meetings that are taking place are just have the meeting ID published and you may not have the hyperlink available to you. So we're just going to pretend like we just know the meeting ID for the meeting that we want to connect to, and then I'm going to show you from here next how to connect to a Zoom meeting. Now again, just to kind of explain what we've got going on here is that we're going to connect to a Zoom meeting, and it's just a test demo meeting that I've set up that I'm hosting, pretending like my studio, Yogafolio, has invited a guest lecturer to come, and this is the invitation that we've got, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect to that meeting that's already started or which is about to start. So what you want to do is next step is that you're going to go to the Zoom website, and so it's just zoom.us, and here it is. And then you look across here where it says join a meeting. Okay, so we're going to click on that. Move my camera. And so we're going to copy this meeting ID, write it down, go back to Zoom, and then we're going to paste that in there. Now, before we go any farther, one thing that trips kind of new people up right off the bat is that once you join a Zoom meeting, for the very first time, it's going to ask you to install like a little plug-in, a little component, a little program. It's very simple. It only takes about 10 seconds. It's not complicated or anything like that. But I did want to warn people because, again, this is one place where you can get tripped up, and I'll show you kind of what can happen in just a second. But I wanted to alert everybody to that here in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and minimize my movie window here for the time being. And we'll just go ahead and continue. So let's go ahead and we'll join. And here it's saying if nothing prompts from browser, download and run Zoom. So at this point, we're expecting something to pop up and ask to be installed. Okay, but as you can see, nothing seems to be happening. And this it just depends on your situation. Sometimes that will pop up automatically, sometimes it won't. But as you can see, we're kind of stuck right here with nothing really to do. So if this happens to you, no big deal. What it's saying is if nothing prompts from browser to launch the meeting, download and run Zoom. So I'm on a Macintosh computer here, so if you're working on a PC, it's going to look maybe a little bit different, but essentially the same steps will take place. So we're going to click here. Nothing seems to be happening when I click over here. Let me go ahead over to this side and download and run Zoom. So that looks like what we need to do. We need to download and run Zoom. And then you can see over here this little download package has come down and installed. And on a PC again, it will look a little bit differently, but it's essentially the same thing. Something will download, ask you if you want to install it, and just go ahead and agree and say yes. And now it's just saying, this is about to be installed. Do you want to install? We'll hit continue. Just take a few seconds. Okay. Since we had to go through that install initially, typically if we had already had that little piece installed, this is what we would be brought to when we went to the Zoom site and said join a meeting. But since we had to install that program, here we'll go ahead and we'll join the meeting. And here we are where it's asking once again, because we had to install that, we're going to go ahead, we'll put that meeting ID in. It's the same meeting ID that I got over here. Pardon me for just a second while I find that. There we go, sorry. And that just took place because I was doing this demo and kind of clicking on different spaces. So here we are at join meeting. So you put that in, and then here is where you're just going to enter your name. And this is essentially going to be just a little kind of chat dialog box. This is not an email account or anything that you're having to give to Zoom. Basically, you just this is the way that you're going to be identified once we get into the Zoom meeting. So you'll see when we do the demo, I'll point out where that meeting is. So my name is Tim. I could change this to anything you would want. Most people, you'll just put your first name. You can put first name, last name, kind of a cool username if you want to, whatever you want. But I'll just change this to Timothy. And then you have a few other choices here. This one is just saying if you want to remember this name for future meetings, you can just keep that, and then any future meetings that we join, that will be your name. And then these two other ones we're just going to leave unchecked for now, and basically this are just referring to your audio settings. So how are you going to hear what's going on when we get into the virtual meeting? Are you using speakers or headphones or whatever? And then also it gives you the opportunity to test your microphone. So we're going to be going through that here in just a minute. I'll explain it a little further, but for now I'm going to leave this unchecked. Video, it's the same thing. This is just going to be prompting us whether we want to turn our video camera on or off. as participants in the meeting, because you can still be joined to a meeting and have your video camera off. So to make it as simple as possible, I'm just going to leave these at their defaults, checked, and then these two unchecked, and then we're going to join. Now again, just to remind everybody, but what we're going to be entering into is the virtual meeting space, and it's going to be, we're pretending as if there is an outside speaker I've invited that's come to my studio, and they're going to be giving a presentation that we're going to be joining. Okay, so hang on just a second. And now we'll click join. And like I said, I did password protect this, so we'll go back. We've got the password ID, and this is the Zoom invitation I'd sent myself. So Yogafolio is asking me because maybe they're charging money for this event or whatever. They've password protected it, so we'll go ahead and hit join. You may or may not always have a password that's going on. And so here we are in the meeting, and like I say, this is my presenter, kind of giving the little lecture series or whatever. And basically what this is I'm just kind of playing around doing a demo, but this is just kind of actually I've got something running on my host computer that's connected to YouTube doing a video. So that's what this actually is. This isn't a live person doing this demo, but just for purposes of showing you what it's like to join a meeting, I wanted to kind of set something up that would be kind of similar to maybe somebody giving a presentation. Okay, so here we are. One of the first steps that we do when we go into a meeting is it's saying, do we want to test our microphone and speakers just to make sure that they're working properly? Okay, so let's go ahead and take advantage of that, since this is the first time we've ever done a Zoom meeting. Let's go ahead and test our speakers. And so you click on this here. It's saying, do I hear a ringtone? Or my speakers working? Let's listen. Yep, I hear it. So my speakers are working. So I hit yes here. And now it's asking me to test my microphone, and you can see how my microphone is going up different levels. Now it's asking me to test my microphone, and you can see how my microphone is. All right, so I am hearing the replay, so my microphone is working okay. All right, so I go back, join with audio, and since I've gone through the test, now I can go ahead and join into this meeting with my computer audio. All right, so here we are in the Zoom meeting virtual space, and right off the bat, what you want to kind of look for, and here are the controls, the various controls that we have available. This is, like I say, the speaker, the host meeting, and you can see that you're viewing Yogafolio's screen, or Yogafolio is the host of this meeting. So again, this could be a church service that you've hopped into and you're watching, being a part of. This could be a yoga class that's kind of going on, and I've got my laptop or computer set up in front of my yoga mat, and I'm participating in the class itself. Whatever it is, this is kind of an example of a meeting where we're just going to be a spectator. We're watching what's going on. Maybe we're taking a class, and like in this case, here's a workshop that's going on, and we're participants within the workshop. All right, and so two of the main controls that you want to be aware of, and you'll notice if I just let my mouse sit for a while, like just happened there, you'll see all those controls that we just had vanished. But if you move your mouse again, or if you take your mouse down here, all of these controls pop back up again. So if you're kind of going along and it's like, oh, where did all those controls go? If you just hit your mouse again, they'll all come back. But these are the two that are kind of the trickiest to navigate a little bit and to just be aware of. So, for example, many times, and in this case, when a host, and let's say Yogafolio, me, I've set this up, and so I've got this set up as a workshop, and when I sent out the invitation to join this meeting, I had the ability to say that when people join the meeting, I want their microphones to be muted. See down here how there's a red line over my microphone? That means my microphone is muted. And the reason that is, if you can imagine, maybe like if this was a church service too, for example, you don't want everybody joining your meeting and then all speaking and talking because all of that noise is going to be heard within the meeting. And so, a lot of these styles of meetings where it's a demonstration or a class being taught, your microphone will automatically be muted when you join that meeting space. And they may not even allow for you to unmute your microphone because they want to avoid as much disturbance as possible. Okay. Um, and so let's go ahead and we'll see. Okay, so now my microphone is on, and you can see that, and you can even hear some reverberation from one of my other computers, and that's what will tend to happen sometimes. If you have a bunch of people joining your meeting and 3 or 4 or 5 different people all have their microphones on, it starts to feedback like is happening now. Okay, and so that's why you want to be aware of your microphone. I'm going to go ahead and mute it again. So I just click on it. And so typically when you're in a meeting like this, you want to have your microphone muted so you don't disrupt the speaker service or the yoga class that's taking place. All right, I'll show a little bit more about this functionality when I kind of talk about when you're in a different style of meeting with a number of other maybe family members or coworkers or whatever, then we'll be muting and unmuting that microphone back and forth as we talk. But for right now, we're not talking, we're just listening to this lecturer talk. And the reason we're not hearing anything is because for the purposes of the demo, I didn't want her talking and conflicting with what I'm saying. So actually, I have turned the volume down on this presentation that's taking place, so we're not listening to 2 different people talk at the same time. So that's the microphone. The next one is the video, and you can see here my video is not on. There's no screen with me in it. But if I go ahead and I hit Start Video, well, voila, there I am now. So when you have your video going, you'll see also a little box that has the other members that are, or the other participants that are in that class along with you. Okay, so in this case, Yoga Folio is the presenter, and so they're actually this person out here, and I've then this is me with my camera on, and then I've also set up just another student, number student 2, just as a test student. And typically, again, don't be confused really by the technology, but uh, I wanted to have this camera off for Yoga Folio, mainly so as just not to confuse things. And so typically you would be seeing the screen here within here, but for now, just because of this test, it doesn't really matter. But the main thing that I wanted to demonstrate here is turning your video on and off. And the person that will appear in this window is the one who's got the green screen around here, and that just symbolizes who is speaking. The person who's speaking is the one who's going to be in here, and then who also has this green box as a highlight also. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll turn the video off again. Okay, so again, coming back down here, my video is now off. If I turn it on, I see the other participants. If I turn it off, then I'm just looking at the lecture. So I would probably, like for example, if I'm doing if I'm participating in a yoga class, there's really no reason for me to have my video on because I'm just watching somebody else do a class or I'm watching a lecture. And this is one way if my bandwidth is a little bit limited or maybe the resources on my computer are a little bit slow. When you turn your video on, then you're sending that video signal out across your internet space, a little bit more traffic. So if you feel like your computer is kind of acting a little slow or something, you can turn your video off and it might help that. Okay, some of the other controls here, we won't worry about invite. This would be if we wanted to invite somebody else into the meeting. Again, I'm just trying to go over the very basics of what a typical or generic meeting would be like. This shows who is participating in the meeting when I click on this. So we see that, okay, there's me, there's the host, Yogafolio, and then that second student that I've set up just as a test student. Okay. So that's a participant box. We're not going to worry about share screen because we don't want to really share our screen. One of the cool features about maybe being in a meeting like this, where maybe we're at church or we're in a workshop, and we don't really want to unmute our microphone and talk to everybody, but the chat feature over here does give us the option to maybe send a chat out if we have, suppose student number 2 is a friend of ours and we want to just shout out a hello to that, other student. We could type in a message right here, hi student number 2, and then that way we could deliver that message and kind of have a little private chat going on with student number 2. The only other alternative is that we would come and unmute our microphone and say, hi, student number 2, but the thing about that is everybody else in the meeting would also hear that shout out as well. When you're in a meeting like this, the other thing that might occur is maybe the host of the meeting has said something like, hey, send me your questions. Do you have a question about the lecture I'm giving or the class that I'm giving? Go ahead and send me a message and I'll try to answer that question as I go along. So this would be an example of how you would be able to send the message to the person who's hosting the meeting. So again, I'm acting as the host, and I could just type in here, hey, I have a question about something, and then send that. And if the host has somebody that's monitoring this meeting, they would see this chat message, and then either immediately or on down the road they could look at your question and say, oh, okay, Tim has a question, let's go ahead and answer that question. So that's one of the cool features about chat down here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll close that out. And again, you just want to be aware of as far as the chat message that you send, you have some different options. By default, it's on everyone. So if I was to type something in here now, it would go out to all of the participants in the meeting, would get a chat message. If I just select an individual person, then just that individual person would receive that chat message, and then we would dialogue back and forth. Okay. And then probably the only other feature that I want to talk about here is reactions. And so if you'll notice, suppose that I wanted to applaud something that the speaker said, or it was the kind of format where maybe a reaction, rather than hitting my microphone on mute and going, oh, that's so interesting that you said that. Something that you can do instead is on this reactions tab is you can do a little virtual hand clap, or a virtual thumbs up. Now, you won't really see those unless we have the video on. That comes through the video camera, so we'll go ahead and we'll do it again. So clap, and you can see now there's like a little clap. So if you had your video on and you had all of your other uh, participants here, and then that clap goes away after about 10 seconds or something like that. You'll kind of see, and that's one thing as far as leaving the video on during a presentation like this is, maybe you can see other people's reactions, or if you want to do a thumbs up, then within my window pane, and everybody else would see this, it's like Timothy says that's a thumbs up over what you just said, and then automatically there it just goes away. But that's one way that you can virtually give a signal that you really agreed, or gave a high five or something to what the speaker had to say. Okay, so let me go ahead and redo my movie screen here a little bit. Okay, and so that's pretty much everything that is involved with participating and attending a Zoom meeting that's this format, where we're a spectator. And again, an example would be like a yoga class, a workshop, a church service, anything like that. Okay. Now, suppose this was more a meeting as if we were free flow, meeting. So instead of a workshop going on here, maybe we would pretend that we could interact with, Yoga Folio, or we were in a meeting where it would be all right to talk amongst one another. And really, the only difference between that kind of meeting and this one is keeping track of your microphone and what your microphone is doing. So if you were, maybe we were in a meeting with 4 or 5 other family members or your coworkers, then what you would want to do is essentially listen as other people are speaking. You would want to have your microphone turned off, otherwise you're going to generate that feedback we had a little bit earlier. But now suppose I want to jump in and I want to say something. I say, hey, I've got a point that I want to make about such and such, and I really don't agree with what you have to say, and whatever. Then I speak my piece, and then come back down here and put my microphone off. And that's the thing about conversing within a virtual meeting. And I know like a lot of support meetings are kind of set up this way. So, you may have 30 or 40 different people that are all virtually in this meeting. And really by, kind of protocol and best practices, it's ideal if only the person who's speaking has their microphone on. But I know it's very hard to do, and people are getting kind of acclimated to this new virtual way of doing things. And so a lot of times you'll join a meeting and there's some static and feedback, but that's okay. As an individual user for yourself, just be aware that you really want to try to keep your microphone muted unless you're talking and you have something to say. And then when you get done talking, try to remember to come back down here and then turn your microphone off. And then that way you're not creating a bunch of feedback that goes off into the room. All right, so those are my primary points. I think with that, you should be able to get up and going really in any kind of Zoom meeting. A couple last things that I might accentuate is that be aware if you are on screen, on camera, be aware of what is behind you. And the thing that you really want to avoid is sitting in front of a really bright window that has a bunch of backlight that comes and kind of washes out your face. So it's usually best wherever you're going to be sitting at, try to stay away from having a really bright background behind you, because that will really take away a lot of the features of your face and just cause a lot of washout onto the screen. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is for whatever space or wherever you're going to be participating in the Zoom meeting, you want to try to find a private, kind of secluded space, especially if you're going to be talking and you're going to be muting and unmuting your microphone, because if you've got a dog running around, if you've got your TV going in the background, kids running around, all of that noise is going to come over into the meeting when you unmute your microphone. So it's really best to try to find a quiet, alone space where you're not going to be interrupted, and then that way, when you go to participate in the meeting, you don't have a bunch of chaos going on in the background along with you. Okay? So for now, then, so once you're done with the meeting is over, or you need to, go off and do errands or whatever you need to do, you just come down here to the lower right hand, and let me think if there's anything else I want to cover about virtual meetings, and I don't really think so. So I am going to post this out to my YouTube channel, and so I'll kind of monitor if there are any comments in there, or if anybody has any questions. Go ahead and put your questions underneath the comments. So it'll be on my YouTube channel, Yoga Folio, on YouTube. And so I'll post this out there for future reference. And then if you have any other questions, maybe I've forgotten to cover something, I'll be happy to answer your questions there along with the comments. But for now, I think we can just go ahead and we'll come down here and we click on Leave Meeting. And then it prompts, do you want to leave this meeting? Yes, we want to leave the meeting. And then here we are back to our original starting space. So there we are. That's what I just wanted to present. Again, Zoom meeting participation, beginning to end. I think with all of those steps that I've gone through, this should enable pretty much anybody to go ahead and hop in for the first time and participate and feel somewhat comfortable. Now, I might also say that I've been doing Zoom meetings for years, and I still have a little bit of hesitancy, joining video conferencing. It's a little awkward, it's a little weird, but the more that you do it, the more comfortable that you'll feel, and the more you'll get comfortable with the muting and unmuting your microphone. But the main thing is that you're not going to break anything. Don't worry about it. It's a great way to go out there and stay connected, during these really troubling times. And that's the main reason I wanted to make this video, is that I really this opportunity to be able to stay connected with my friends and family has been, really just, I've got a lot of gratitude for that. And so I just wanted to share, the ability to do this with anybody else who might be a little bit scared about doing it, because it is a good way to stay connected in these really trying times. So I hope this finds you well, and I hope you can make use of this, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll finish it out. Bye-bye for now.